Howdy YouTube, Eznix here with a video update for a project that's several years old, my EznixOS project. It's Debian-based respin, very little customization done to Debian, and I started this way back in Debian 10, maybe even 9. It's been a while. We're now on Debian 13, and Trixie was released a month ago about. I'm sort of waiting for the first point release, 13.1, which should come out September 6th, 2025. It's now September 1st, but I decided to continue the project, and I was debating this. I almost had decided not to, just because there's very little I do to Debian with EznixOS that can't just be done post a Debian install, adding some software. But I do like the fact that the Calamares installer allows me to make different choices and control those options. And that's the reason I'm continuing the EznixOS, because Calamares installer allows me to do things differently than the standard Debian installer or even the Debian Calamares settings. And we'll go through some of those settings when we do the installation here. Now I do have testing releases up on SourceForge. They're under a folder called testing-trixie. And I did build these ISOs. Well, I've been building ISOs of Trixie for the past 4 days, testing and retesting and installing and so on and so forth, tweaking. And I finally came up with what I believe is a good first release. I did yesterday, August 31st, and I had a couple ISOs up there dated August 31st. But I did some cleanup of the build script, some more comments to the build script, making it clear what was being done, and fixing some little problems in documentation. And there might still be other little typos in documentation. But I think I've come up with a good first initial testing release. So we're going to boot into the KDE version. I have both Xfce and KDE. Before we do that, let's take a quick look over at SourceForge here. And you can see the last update was 8 minutes ago as of this video. I did change the verbiage here to refer to Debian Trixie or Debian 13. I did put up new screenshots of the KDE live system running. If we go over to files, there is the old EznixOS13 release still there, and now the testing Trixie release. If we go into testing Trixie, we can see the build files in their tar packages here for KDE and for Xfce, dated today. We do see the ISOs for KDE and Xfce, and a README here, which is the README that comes standard with the ISOs. The default download is the KDE version. That's why I put up the screenshots of KDE. And that's why we're doing the video on the KDE edition. So I have it running in VirtualBox with EFI enabled. So we're seeing the EFI enabled boot screen here. I noticed the legacy BIOS boot screen. I have a cat demanding some attention on my side. The BIOS boot screen, the splash image is a little wonky in the BIOS boot up, but the UEFI boot up looks like it should. And let's boot it on up here. You can see I don't change the stock splash screens for Debian. I do with the boot menu, but after that, we're looking at a pretty stock Debian desktop and splash screens getting to that desktop. I don't change the desktop themes or icons or wallpaper. We're getting whatever Debian provides. Now, you can obviously make those changes yourself. You can take this EznixOS project and modify it to your heart's content and get whatever you want to get from it. It is all open source. It is all free to use. The tar files contain all the build packages, the build files, all the scripts, everything. And you can modify that. We get a notification about iBus here. The KDE desktop with the live system does run in Wayland by default. And we can see that's working fine in VirtualBox here. Once you install this, you can use the SDDM login manager to change between Wayland and X11. You can also do that in the live ISO by logging out and logging back in. So let's take a quick view around here. We're going to make the display a little bigger here. Display and monitor. Let's make it 16 by 9. We're also, just for safety's sake, going to turn off the screen locking. I don't want that to be a problem during the install if it goes into screen lock. Okay, so there we have it. Cool. Let's move this a little here, just because I know my face is in the lower left corner, lower right corner, whatever. I want to prevent it from blocking as much of the virtual screen, the virtual machine as possible. We can see there's the installer icon right on the desktop, install EznixOS. The theme by default is very nice, dark theme. We have the Breeze icon set. Under development, we have Kate and Meld. Under games, Isle Riot Solitaire and DOSBox Emulator. Under graphics, Gwenview, ImageMagick, LibreOffice Draw, Ocular, and Scanlight. Under Internet, we have Aggregator for FeedReader, the Chromium web browser. I decided to go with Chromium in this release just because I didn't want to put Firefox ESR in. It's always lagging behind current Firefox. Wanted a continuously up-to-date browser. FileZilla, because I use that. KDE Connect comes with KDE. QBitTorrent for BitTorrents. And the Conqueror browser comes with KDE as well. Multimedia, we have Audacious, very simple music player. K3B for disk burning, if you still do that. MPV and SM Player for video and almost any multimedia files, and Sound Converter to convert audio file formats. Under Office, we have the HP LIP utility, LibreOffice Calc, Draw, Impress, Math, Office, and Writer, as well as Ocular for PDF document viewing. Science and Math is just LibreOffice Math. Under System, we have BleachBit. We have Discover for KDE software, Dolphin File Manager, the Easy Admin tool, which offers a couple of functions that may or may not really be all that necessary anymore. GDebI package installer for installing individual deb files. Gparted because I like it better than System Partition Manager for KDE. grsync for GUI for rsync. HPLIP, of course, HTOP, Info Center is KDE's Info Center. Install EznixOS is the installer, Calamares. KDE also includes their partition manager, so you have both. Console, of course, the terminal emulator under KDE. Wallet Manager, Menu Editor, Print Settings. Synaptic Package Manager is here for you as well. Timeshift, I include Timeshift. If you are installing this and want to take system restore points, that's what Timeshift is for. And under Utilities, what do we have here? We have Arc for archive management. Disks, GNOME Disk Utility, always handy. Kate, of course. Calc, KeePassX for password management. Kwrite, Spectacle, and Sweeper. Spectacle is a screenshot taker. Sweeper is a sort of cleanup utility for KDE. So let's go ahead and start the install. I'll point out some of the differences in the Calamares settings that I use. I do enable debug by default. Let's see, we go next. You do have to pick your region or your time zone. The region it figured out on its own. Time zone had to change. Keyboard layout, US default, generic, fine. Now here's one change from the standard Debian Calamares settings. I do give you the choice of swap, no swap, hibernate swap, or swap to file. We'll do swap no hibernate, which is a small minimal swap file, or swap partition. I do give you the choice of ext4, BTRFS, and Xfce for your file systems. Let's choose BTRFS. We are installing in a EFI situation here. So next, I also do not include the nag about insecure passwords. You can use whatever password you want. And install. And now it's going to go about, whoop, don't want that message pop up there. It's just when you hover over the sections of the Calamares installer, you get those pop-ups. Kind of ugly for video purposes. So it's already filling up the file system. You can toggle the log if you'd like to check to see what Calamares is doing behind the curtain, so to speak. And toggle that back. Debug simply brings up all of the settings and choices you've made. The job queue looks empty. Modules just lists the Calamares modules that are installed and going to run during the Calamares setup. Not a whole lot of useful information, but possibly. And we can see it's trudging along here, 6%, 7%. It'll go pretty slow until it hits about 11 or 12, then it'll start moving a little quicker. You know what? I should have started this and then started going over the software included. That would have made a little more sense, wouldn't it have? I think so. Well, while this is running, let's take a look at some of the documentation. And I'll show you some of the bits that were necessary to change to get my EznixOS scripts and build system working with Trixie. The ISO and the install system will contain all of my documentation. You have the background images I put in place, so you can change the backgrounds. The bootloader sections, this comes straight out of the live build bootloader section. except the splash image I put, which is my own custom splash image. Calamares settings. We have the branding that I use for Calamares. We have the modules configurations, and this is where I do my changes from the standard Debian settings. So if you want to know why my Calamares installer has the options it has, it's because I put in very specific module configuration files that are slightly different in some cases from the Debian module configuration files. The mount, the partition, the users, the shell process. I changed quite a bit of this. The bootloader, the fs tab conf, all different from the Debian versions. Documentation, I do provide, I think, nicely complete documentation. The BLD EznixOS13K how-to text file. Let's open this up with Kate and make it bigger. Now, this describes the build script or the build process. Now, the build process and the build script are one and the same. The script just is a bash version of the process. We create the build folders and the working folders, assign some variables to those folder names, remove one of the hooks if it's there. One of the build hooks. Set up the live build config with this one statement, lb config, and this determines all of the live build settings that are used in the live build system creating EznixOS. We then pass or create text files that contain all of the packages that I want included in the build. The KDE desktop packages are all listed here. The more packages, just add in more packages besides the desktop. The firmware to be installed, all the firmware packages are listed here. The Calamares dependencies are listed here, so Calamares can run. Now, these two sections are what gave me the most headache with this build. Because up to this point, my older editions of EznixOS included all these binary files to be included on the ISO, but not installed in the system. And I had one list. And the reason it worked is because I included a certain component of grub in the more packages and not in the binary files. And I was struggling to figure out how to include both the grub EFI and the grub PC binary files, because when I included them all in the same list, the live build process errored out because it couldn't install conflicting grub EFI and grub PC packages. I didn't realize it was as simple as creating two lists, one for grub EFI packages, one for grub PC packages. Once I had nailed that, or once I figured that out, thanks to a quick Google search and whatever AI Google is using, led me to the correct procedure immediately. And then everything just worked. Wonderful. Install the actual Calamares packages and the, well, didn't want to edit anything. Install the grub, the Calamares package and the Debian Calamares settings package. Even though I edit some of the settings, I need most of them in place for Calamares to work with Debian, of course. I then create a folder structure within the build folder, copy some files into that folder structure to modify or add to the build. I give one section here that is commented out, but it allows you to put your own deb files into the build to be included in the ISO, installed ISO, if you wish, from outside Debian repositories. And all you have to do is put the packages in this folder and uncomment this line in the script, and your packages will be included in the build. And then it just starts to build with the command lb build, because all of the settings and all of the configuration and all of the files have been specified before that issue of that command. So that is the documentation. The EZadmin how-to explains the EZadmin script. The prepare and the how-to, the build how-to combined give you the information to do this manually instead of using my script. If we look at the prepare how-to, it does tell you what to install in stock Debian to get started using live build. You obviously need live build, but you also need tools that live build needs. SquashFS tools, syslinux common, syslinux utils, XORR-ISO, and ISO Linux, all necessary for live build to actually build a working ISO. And then, as I described, some steps of how to manually do the build. Okay, anything else? I do include a couple hooks. These are live build hooks that are installed into the live build folder that modify the way or do a couple things. Basically, create the customized installer icon name and settings for the Calamares installer icon. Launchers. The EZadmin desktop launcher is here. The miscellaneous 64 folder if you want to put in any of your own packages. All the scripts, I do include the EZadmin script and its helper scripts right here. The sources, which I'm not so sure are necessary to include anymore, because Calamares does set up the sources for Debian completely, unlike the Debian installer. So one of the EZadmin features is go to testing. So I have the sources.testing file here for that. And then the build script itself. As I said, this is really the same as documentation, just in a bash file, a bash script file format. Documented the same way the text how-to file is, but this is what's run to create my ISO. Now, hopefully, after all that talking, the install's done. Let's see. Yeah, we're all done. We can reboot. Cool. I don't have that set automatically. So done. Let's shut her down. Sometimes this happens with Debian. The ISO, the live ISO sort of hangs at that point a little longer than you might think it should. Did I close accidentally? Interesting. Let's reopen VirtualBox. Fascinating that the VM ran even though I closed the application. Let's take out the ISO. Let's start up the installed system. And you can see that we're now at the grub boot screen of an installed EznixOS. And it even lists EznixOS GNU Linux in the grub menu. Cool. Now, as I said, I also have the Xfce version of this as well. The Xfce version is also pretty much unmodified from a standard looking Xfce Debian install. You're free to modify that as you wish. In a way, I prefer releasing ISOs with default settings, look and feel defaults, because it means it conveys to the user, I have not messed with any settings here. You're getting a stock experience. You can take it and run with it and do what you wish. And it should work just like Debian does. Now we can see we can choose either Wayland, which is default, or X11. Let's go ahead and leave it at Wayland. We can log in. And we should be greeted with the same screen. We can skip that. We can open up settings. We can go to display and monitor. We can change this to 16 by 9, a much more pleasant experience. Keep. We can turn off screen locking. I really wish screen locking was turned off by default. And there you have it. We have our Debian setup. If we go to desktop and wallpapers, we can add a location or add a wallpaper. Go to root, go to USR, go to share, go to backgrounds, and here are all the backgrounds that I put in. We can pick something like lava lamp. We can go to icons. Oh, I can't change that here. Okay, never mind. I have to go back and maybe go to colors and themes. And here we can select the icons. Let's do Papyrus Dark, apply, nice. Okay, that's all I'm going to change. Now I have my Papyrus icon set, which I prefer. And the system is working as it should. Ready to use, ready to make your own, ready to add your own software. Have fun with it. One of the first things I do is put console in the task manager because I want it here. Always want to have console readily, handily available. Cool. So uname A, we have the stock Debian kernel. Very nice. Now, I didn't show this to you in the live setup. I'll do it now. Even though, as I said, I don't think it's as useful as it used to be. The Easy Admin tool. It will ask for sudo password. Let's make this a little bigger, easier to see. And you can see some of the features of the EasyAdmin script. Add myself to the sudo group. I think that's done by Calamares, so I don't think that's really necessary anymore. Optimize sources and update repos. As I said, I don't think that's really necessary anymore. Install YTDLP video downloader. Install newest kernel from backports. That still can be handy. Upgrade to Debian testing. That can still be handy. So there you go, folks. That's it. EznixOS, based on Trixie, testing ISOs up and available. They seem to be working just fine. Let me know if they're not, either in this video or in the discussion section of the SourceForge project for EznixOS. Take care, stay safe, have fun. You'll see me in another video, folks. Bye-bye.